The real problem with people is not recognizing the enemy. It's acting on that enemy.
Yeah. You got to fight the beast.
Negative thoughts can be kind of like having a vampire on your neck all the time, draining a little bit of your life energy without you even noticing it. And because of that, negative thoughts should be of interest to nearly anybody. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Morten Råberg, and I am a former lobbyist who is now spending my time delivering you executive summaries on important topics that will help you, hopefully, move more easily through the clutter that is the information age. We're talking about negative thoughts. I'm going to do that over a short series, I guess, perhaps a couple of videos. And as I said, this is an extremely important topic. And even if you don't feel like you're struggling with it right now, even if you will never struggle with it in your life, you will almost certainly know somebody who will. So I think this is a topic very much worth taking seriously, and the good thing is that you can do something about it without spending a dime in most cases. So let's just use this video to let me pitch you why you should really take this seriously and do something about it. And we'll start by looking at a little metaphor by one of the most amazing people in the world, Duncan Trussell, the comedian, who way back was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he made this epic rant. So let's roll.
If you got one.
If you're walking around with those fucking vampire blues, you've got the fucking heavy heart, and you can't feel happy, and you feel bad. There may be an action that you need to take that you're afraid to take. That's the vampire. And you've got to fucking...
Not even a person.
Oh, no, I mean,
anything.
it's a situation.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Find the vampire in your life.
Yeah, find the life-sucking situation that you're afraid to kill. And the reason I say vampire is because vampires only go where they're invited. And generally, the situation that you're in, you invited it in. You invited this thing into your life, and now it's sucking your life energy and your blood and your happiness away. And a lot of times, you'll try to convince yourself that this thing is not a vampire. But in your heart, you got to take a fucking stake and drive it into its heart. How do you kill a vampire? 2 ways. Direct action. The other one is light, sunlight, truth, light. It's the greatest metaphor of all time. You shine the light of truth onto the situation, fearlessly analyze it, and then you'll destroy it.
So what I really like about this metaphor here is that he talks about how you invited the vampire in. And I think that is very, very typical. That is very, very, that's a characteristic of having negative thoughts. That you are sort of thinking that this particular thought has something good to tell you. That you're figuring something out, or thinking in this way will give you an advantage, or this is actually a deep truth about the world, even though it's really a big lie about the world that is at the core of your foundations of your beliefs. So, and on the other hand, what I really like about this metaphor in terms of negative thinking is that it sort of provides this idea that you have to kill the vampire. You have to either hit it at its weak points or shine truth on it until it sort of dissolves. And I think that metaphor is amazing for overthinking. And I do believe that, unfortunately, a lot of us has one of these bloodsuckers on our shoulder, laying in our bed, or perhaps coming to us through other people. And as I said, it could be that you find yourself thinking about the same recursive thoughts again and again and again in your everyday. But it could also be that you find yourself being very reactive to people around you when, they say specific things because you think they mean something else than what they are actually trying to convey to you. And it's because you have a negative idea of other people. And it could also be that you are, falling into workaholism or other negative ways of being because you think that you have to be like this to be loved or acknowledged, and that's like a deeper foundational thought about the real characteristics of the world when it's actually a big lie. But what do I even think about? What do I even mean when I say a negative thought? Like, isn't there negativity that we have to think about? Of course. It's when I talk about negative thoughts like this, I'm not saying that you can't think about subjects that are negative. I'm talking about, would you label this thought as negative, objectively speaking, for you? I mean, so an objectively negative thought for you, I would argue that even something that is just recursive again and again and again would be negative, because it's, you're spending a lot of time and energy just, churning this sort of thought. So it could be just because it's recursive. And then there's also thoughts where you could almost feel yourself getting heavier inside while you're thinking the thought. And that would be a negative thought because it's affecting you negatively, obviously. And it could be thoughts that, steadily makes you more reactive to people around you. So you have these negative thoughts, you have these recursive, thoughts around how people, perceive you. And then you become reactive to, what's going on in the world around you, where you, it would be a lot better if you weren't that reactive. That's a negative thought. And again, you could have the core negative belief at the foundation of some of your thinking, and that means that it's obviously also, a negative thought. So I'm just saying, calling it a negative thought, because then we can have all these different kinds of negative mental operations in the same bucket, so to say. And I've been digging and doing some research on how negative thoughts can affect us, and one of them is that it actually reduces the amount of beneficial brain chemicals that we have in our brain. So chemicals such as dopamine, testosterone, serotonin, GABA, so on and so forth. All these neurotransmitters and hormones become negatively affected when you have negative thoughts in your brain, recursive negative thoughts. It can actually change the morphology of the brain. So over time, if you have a lot of negative thoughts, your brain will actually turn out a bit different. And it can have accelerated aging effects on your brain, and your ability to rest and deal with stressful situations that come up can be impaired. And the last thing that I think is extremely important also to take note of is that people with high degrees of negative thinking will also often have compulsory behaviors like doing drugs or being addicted to their work, so on and so forth. So let's just take a moment to review some of the psychological conditions that relates to excessive negative thinking. And for me, at least, this is where the topic gets extremely interesting. So let's have a look. So, for example, we know that excessive negative thoughts relates to depression. We know that it relates to attention deficit hyper disorder. And hyperactivity disorder, body image issues, and we know that it relates to substance abuse issues, to anxiety, to obsessive compulsive disorder and stress, and personality disorders. So in all of these psychological conditions, it usually helps to deal with excessive negative thoughts in the myriad of ways that you can do this. So even, again, if you don't think that you're dealing with this right now, you might in the future. And even if you will never deal with it, you will get to know somebody who does. And I would also argue that even if you are a very evenly keeled person, somebody who doesn't have a tendency of becoming, enmeshed in negative feelings and who don't see themselves as neurotic or whatever, you might still be operating on a lot of negative emotions and negative thoughts. And, having a way to go through them is the best type of spring cleaning you can do for your life. The real promise of dealing with excessive negative thoughts is that you will stop dealing with the world through this kind of filter that you build up for yourself. And instead of looking at the world as something that you half and half create in your own mind and react to in a way that is not in accordance with the actual, stimuli that you're receiving, you will never be as free as you could be if you dealt with these issues. So I would highly advise you to follow along in this series. And if you are dealing with a lot of negative thoughts, I want to tell you it's nothing to be ashamed or worried about. These effects can all be mitigated, they can all be reversed, and it will cost you next to nothing unless, of course, you are really dealing with this in a hard way. And if you are, then I would seriously suggest that you talk to a therapist or an expert in some way. But that was all I had for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Please follow along in this series if it interests you. And if you like this content, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and even hit the notification bell. I'd really need your support if I am to see if this experiment is going anywhere. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.